Hey, everybody. Mark Pukita here for the latest episode of Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb. I'm pretty jazzed about tonight's episode, as I am about every episode when it really comes down to it. First of all, I've just got to say the music that our art department, our graphics department picked for that little piece at the beginning, the electronic music is freaking awesome. Kind of gets me in the mood for doing these things. Tonight, we're going to talk truth. We're going to talk about a few topics that I hope will be entertaining and informative to you. We'll not be having a Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb next Monday. I just want to make you aware of that. We've got a special meeting with our volunteers and supporters. So if you're a volunteer and supporter, you can participate. But if not, you got to sign up and do that. You can go to mark4ohio.com. That's Mark, the number 4ohio.com. Sign up to be a volunteer, and you can participate next Monday. Anyway, we've got three parts to the show tonight. The first is going to be, should I or should I not continue to talk about corruption as much as I do? The second is a little conversation about Jenna Ellis's meltdown over me. And the third piece, the third segment, will be about taking back our Ohio Republican Party State Central Committee. So let's go into segment one. Should I or should I not continue to talk as much as I do about corruption? So I talk about corruption a lot. And I want to have a kind of a heart-to-heart conversation with you, the folks that are viewers. I know you're supporters. I know you're volunteers. I know you're just people trying to determine whether or not I'm the right candidate for you. But I talk about corruption a lot. And I'm getting feedback that people are uncomfortable about it. And I think they're uncomfortable about it because not because I'm talking about corruption, but because I'm forcing honest discussions about things we need to talk about, conversations we need to have as Americans about how things are going in our country, how things are going in our state, and what we can do to make them better. And I thought about, well, we could spend more time on policy. So I pulled out my policy guide, my 21-point policy guide. Mine's a little dog-eared because I use it quite a bit. If you don't have one, you should have one. It's 21 points, 21 of the biggest issues facing our state and our country. And it's because you've asked for it. And it's written down, and it's my commitment to you how I will work when I get to DC to represent you. And it's in writing, and it in and of itself becomes contentious very, very quickly in terms of corruption or having these discussions, these honest discussions about topics that make people feel uncomfortable. For example, I just pulled out three of the kind of the cards from the policy guide. And you can find the policy guide again at mark4ohio.com/policy. Once again, that's mark4ohio.com/policy. But the very first item, not in any kind of priority, but the very first item is infrastructure and transportation. And I looked at that and I thought, point number 2 is absolutely contentious. Replace failing infrastructure like the Cincinnati Brent Spence Bridge that failures Boehner and McConnell should have fixed over a decade ago. The minute you bring up infrastructure and talk about something like that, insider GOP operatives within the Ohio Republican Party go absolutely apoplectic. You can't be criticizing people who were insiders. You just can't do that. You can't say that a Republican Speaker of the House and a Republican leader of the Senate in the two states that bridge goes between failed. You're not allowed to say that, because that is having too real of a conversation. Let's go to point number 2, law, order, and safety. Expose and remove elected officials who bow to mobs. Well, back in the summer of 2020, we had riots in Columbus, and our governor just called the state highway patrol and said, back off. Again, another contentious issue, because we can't criticize Mike DeWine without taking heat from the insiders, from those in the Ohio Republican Party who want to tell us how it's going to be. And then let's look at point number 20, state and local. Get broadband and cellular into rural areas. I've spent a lot of time in rural Ohio, probably more time than most of the candidates, most of my opponents. And here's what I'm telling you. People in those counties are angry that politicians have not helped give them the infrastructure that will allow them to be economically successful. Not having broadband, not having enough cellular coverage at high speed keeps them from being competitive in terms of growing businesses, starting businesses, becoming independent of government, allowing for entrepreneurialism, allowing them to better their lives, to educate themselves, you name it. They're angry, and so they start talking about their representatives in Columbus and in Washington who do nothing. And of course, that's contentious because we're not allowed to call people out in our own party. So those are some of the things I'm dealing with. And I've even had some volunteers that have come to me and said, you know, we have these people coming to us saying, hey, we're long time, political insiders, and we really think that Mark, he's hammering on the Ohio Republican Party, he's hammering on corruption. He needs to stop that. And I will tell you that I do not believe those people are giving my volunteers and my supporters the best advice, because they want to protect the status quo. They want to protect, for example, the DeWine cabal. They want to protect people like Rob Portman, who are handpicked by the party and shoved down our throats. It's gotten to the point where these people are exhibiting hatred to me, and that's okay. I expected it. They hate me because I am poking and prodding at them and exposing their failures and their lack of integrity and their lack of ethics in doing the right thing, in representing Ohioans the way Ohioans want to be represented. They are actors, they're facades, they're caricatures, and they put on a good act, and then they go to Columbus or Washington and they stop acting. And we wonder why that is. And we shouldn't. We need to get real with ourselves about how to be evaluating these candidates and make sure we're making the right choices. The only way to fix this, to fix the corruption, to fix the First Energy kind of things that are going on right now, Larry Householder, Mike DeWine, all of these people involved in this corruption, we've got to talk about it. We've got to expose it. We've got to have adult conversations about it. And then we need to vote as educated voters. We've got to find a way to get more information to voters so they make the right choices on primary day in May and on general election day in November. So let's move on to topic number 2. That would be Jenna Ellis's meltdown. And I'm going to bring in Chris Hicks, who all of you should know as kind of my partner on this topic. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well.
So before we move on to that, I think everything you just said there was extremely well said. And I think of, I don't know why I thought of this, but when you were going through that, I think you've taken heat even for not having a quote unquote resume. What's your resume of government bullshit you've been involved with?
Right.
And I love when you say, I did something that Josh Mandel didn't do. I did something that Dolan never did.
Right. Great job.
I created jobs so
Right.
that people could be independent of government. And
Right.
there is nothing more important for our country that people be independent of government and not be afraid of government. And you can't be independent. You can't be unafraid. That really doesn't connect to anything you said. but directly. But I just thought of that for some reason when you were going through that, is even that you haven't been a career politician, people bitch at you about. So
they'll find, yeah, I mean, Chris, they'll find anything. I mean, you're not a career politician, you're not raising enough money, you're not worth enough money, you're worth too much money.
Right.
I mean, this is just a game. It's an act, it's a facade, and we've just got to, we've played this game for half a century, and we just have to stop it. It's the Donald Trump did one thing. He let the genie out of the bottle on this stuff, and the genie's not going back. So,
well, he also did a great job at both forcing the difficult conversations and changing the discussions to be common sense discussions. So we go from, Mitt Romney style, how much amnesty can we have this year, to Donald Trump style, how do we seal off the border so this quits being a problem over and over again?
Right.
All right.
And those were always, Chris, positive solutions for America. When you think about them, Americans should have all been, let's go. But we had forces both within our party and the other party that just fought against that kind of thing.
All right. You ready to move on and talk about Miss Ellis?
Let's do it.
Your fan club? All right, let's do that.
So,
all right, Mark. So we're back to talk about Jenna Ellis.
Let's talk about Jenna Ellis. I was going to say, over the past few days, we've had a bit of a dust up with Jenna Ellis. And for those who don't know, she came to fame as one of Donald Trump's lawyers during the election, protests of the election legally and all the rest. So I just wanted to kind of give that update introduction, and then many people know her from Real America's Voice. I've done an interview with her on Real America's Voice a few months ago, but maybe we can, you can kind of put some things up on the screen and we can have a discussion about them.
Right. So I'm trying to get here, and it's not cooperating tonight, but there she is. There's Miss Ellis, and there we go. So you asked her to be on the show here today.
I did.
And I did check right before the show. She had not responded. I messaged her on it. There were comments left on her Facebook page. And, as you said, she has a claim to fame of working with the Rudy Giuliani and Trump, and that's fantastic, and that's great. But she is really a Josh Mandel person. She endorsed Josh Mandel. I think she was, when you were on her show, is it true that, is it safe to say she had him on, and then the only reason you were on is because a bunch of your supporters when they bitched at her about you need to have Mark Pukita on your show?
I believe that's true. I don't recall because it was a while back, and I've done a lot of different media appearances, but yeah, I think that's true.
So here's what happened, and I'll kind of, you chime in, Mark, as we go through it. So Jenna Ellis posted on December 17th on her Facebook a thing that said, for anyone in Ohio considering supporting Mark Pukita, ask yourself if you support his anti-Semitic comments. Absolutely unacceptable and disgusting. So that was what she posted, and the anti-Semitic comments per se were tied to, I guess, the ad that you ran. And right. Why don't we? What I did is I loaded up here. I'm going to play for everybody. It's going to take, I think, about a minute and a half or so, 2 minutes. The ad that supposedly has the unacceptable and disgusting anti-Semitic Mark Pukita in it, according to Jenna Ellis, a shill for Josh Mandel at this point. And it also then has Josh Mandel in a candidate forum, in two different candidate forums. Go ahead and watch that.
Cool.
Are we seriously supposed to believe the most Christian values Senate candidate is Jewish? I am so sick of these phony caricatures.
Oh, I agree. If we keep electing people like this, we'll just keep getting the same terrible results.
I like Pukita. He's authentic, unlike these other people. You can learn more about him at markforohio.com. That's Mark, the number 4, Ohio.com.
I'm Mark Pukita, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Our first church town hall we did was at a small church in the middle of a soybean field in Bucyrus, Ohio. We were hoping to have 50 people there. That night in Victory and Truth Ministries, we had 250 people show up at that church. We went on to First Nazarene, 270 people in Findlay. Washington Heights Baptist Church in Dayton, 300 people showed up. Solid Rock Church in Lebanon, 500 people showed up. We were at Community Grace Brethren Church in the middle of a cornfield in West Milton, Ohio. 600 people showed up.
When I go to Washington, I'm not going to listen to the Republican leaders. I'm going to use two documents as my guide. The Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other.
So that's the style of Josh Mandel. And at the beginning of the ad there, it acted a little funky on my end, but the part that was controversial is when the voiceover artists say, are we seriously to believe the most Christian values guy on the stage is Jewish? And
right.
That's the line that created a controversy. And it actually, you might have ever heard that, but it would act a little funky on my screen here. And
no, I
so
think
the
yeah.
gist.
I think we heard it. And Chris, it goes back to the first segment. We're just having honest discussions about how people are campaigning. And Josh has been, it's almost like wants to be a televangelist. And he's running around in evangelical Christian churches, and he's professing all of these Judeo-Christian values. But if you look at his background, his personal life doesn't really match up with that. And so we're just calling that out. We're trying to educate voters. And for that, we've just gotten lambasted by some of the media. And that's how Jenna Ellis got involved, because she endorsed Josh Mandel a while back. And I never got any kind of a survey from her or went through any kind of a process.
To participate.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody else did either. So why is she so sold on Josh Mandel? And she won't answer those questions. So she came on and she kind of smeared me as being anti-Semitic. And I said, hey, I'll have a conversation with you. And our supporters got on her, and she's now gone absolutely radio silent. You sent her opportunities to come on tonight or to do a special show with us at another time that works for her. I've done the same thing, and she hasn't answered. I don't think she expected the pushback she got. What I've been finding in politics, Chris, is that these career politicians and the people who are in their orbit are incredibly thin-skinned. And when you fight back against them, they're shocked. They don't know what to do. And they just go dark. And that's what she's done. It's shocking to me that people who want to talk about being fighters are so timid.
Well, the thing about that I see, Mark, about the whole thing is how basically the behavior, and I'm not saying Jen Ellis is a bad person, what have you, but how we as conservatives sometimes end up using some of the exact behaviors that we decry of the woke liberal mob crowd. Like, let's just jump on, let's pile on. And I think Josh Mandel does that a lot, is just this red meat, whip everybody up, but it's kind of like not very much different than a woke mob. Let's all jump on because we want Josh Mandel to win, Jenna Ellis. So let's just jump on and attack Mark Pukita. No basis, no feedback, no follow through.
And it really is interesting, Chris, because this took place back in October, the end of October, the beginning of November. And in John Solomon's organization, Just the News, someone wrote an article about this a couple days ago. And it was clearly, to me, a smear job and a hit job orchestrated by someone, a media organization working for whoever, with that article and then the comments by Jenna, all tying them together. And even John Solomon. I mean, I feel honored that John Solomon got involved and made a big deal out of this. I would invite John Solomon to come on with us at any time.
I would invite people to read the article, because the article that that's intended as a smear actually ends up backfiring
Right.
because people that say, I read the article, it's like, what did this guy do? He pointed out that a Jewish guy was Jewish, and now it's like he's some sort of satanic figure. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And then there's the point about.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, Jenna Ellis, if she's the Christian she professes to be, then I threw out Matthew 18. And if you're a Christian, you know, most Christians know what Matthew 18 means. She owes you an apology. And she owes, if she's truly the Christian she professes to be, we all get whipped up and stuff. We all make mistakes. We all say things we shouldn't have said. But she owes you a retraction and apology.
I agree. And Chris, think about it this way. If it was reversed, someone calling me a Christian, if I was in front of, let's say, a congregation in a temple, a Jewish temple, like, would that be anti-Christian? Like, I don't understand how these kind of things always work one way, but they don't work the other.
So let's say that you came into a temple and you were going on about the Torah and so on and so forth, and a Jewish person said, am I seriously supposed to believe the most Jewish guy here is a Christian? You know, would it be the same treatment? The reality of it is, and I think anybody that listens to the ad, listens to you talk, knows you're 0% anti-Semitic, and that the
100%.
point is about Josh Mandel being a imposter who will do anything and say anything and kowtow and pander to any group with or without the truth on his side to get to whatever his next career politician job is. And I think he is in panic mode because early on in the election, if you remember, Mark, when he was putting out all the stuff about how he was so dominant in the polls and nobody could beat Josh Mandel. The reality is the more people get to know Josh Mandel, the more it looks like a worse version of the Josh Mandel that lost a Senate race by 6 points to Sherrod Brown previously.
I have said this for a long time, that Josh's best day polling wise was the day he announced that he was running for U.S. Senate. He could only go backwards as people got into the race. And as we started talking about policy, the other thing Josh virtually never does is talk about policy. It's all this red meat. That stuff that you saw on the screen, it's all red meat. I've got 21 policy points, and I'm glad to talk about these. I mean, ad infinitum. I could sit for 8 hours and have policy discussions, but
yes, I do know.
Yeah, I've bored you to death. Bored you to death with my policy and my numbers. Mark, stop building the watch. Just tell me the time. I get it. But I mean, I believe, a legislative job is a policy job. It's why Mike DeWine sucked as a senator and sucks as a governor. He wasn't so bad as an attorney general, but he sucks in policy jobs.
Well, I think it's a policy job, but more important than that, what we lack in and why I'm so supportive of you is it's a job to be able to get input, use common sense, and force the tough discussions so that we can actually have better decisions for our country. And that's what I like about you is that you're always listening. You're always trying to improve upon the ideas I've never seen you get so wedded to an idea that of a policy of how we're going to do something that you would ignore or shut out a better idea or a better approach to your idea type of thing. So,
thanks. But I would tell you that I will never, ever admit that pizza isn't one of the basic food groups.
So I captured a couple of points, some of the comments on her Facebook page, that we can look at here real quick, Mark, and I'll paraphrase some of them. But there was somebody that one of your supporters, it's fun to go listen to her Facebook page or look at her Facebook page to see the responses she got to her smear job on you. And it said that she was responding. Somebody said, I had Mark on my show prior to these comments. So before you make unfounded accusations, maybe try doing a little research. Okay. So I responded to that one personally on your behalf, Mark, as Jenna Ellis, have you considered following your own advice? So before you make unfounded accusations, maybe try doing a little research.
Right. Well, not only research on me, but research on Josh Mandel. There is a treasure trove of behaviors out there that are in the press. You don't need an opposition research firm. You don't need a private investigator. It's all out there. Just, search it on the internet and look at it. Spending $1.8 million or so of taxpayer money to increase his name recognition in ads with Urban Meyer, taxpayer money that really wasn't required. And we've looked at that. He was hiring friends and family. He wasn't showing up for work very much. He scrubbed his social media between the time he dropped out of the race and now. There's a whole bunch of other things out there. All you have to do is Google them, and it appears that Jenna Ellis did zero research because she says, I endorse Josh Mandel because he's America first, and it's all this red meat nonsense bullshit, right? And I think she needs to do a little work. I mean, she needs to do some journalisming is what she needs to do.
And yes, and maybe she needs to spend more time in Ohio than a flyby to do a Josh Mandel event. Okay. And understand a little more about Ohio and Ohioans and what some of the real needs are here. And one of the needs are that we have fewer politicians like Josh Mandel in Ohio, to be honest, that are facades. We have so many of them. We don't have a single, think about this. You and I've talked about this a lot. We can't name a single person in Ohio that is like Ron DeSantis. Maybe Jim Jordan, people think it's close. You know what I'm saying? But we don't have a single statewide elected person that's even could carry Ron DeSantis, that you were in gym class. And so here's another comment, one of the few I clipped, Mark. Jen Ellis, you repeating this garbage is exactly the same as the media accusing Trump of being racist for saying some of the migrants crossing the border weren't nice people. What a way to take things out of context and take part in cancel culture.
Right. What I will say, Chris, is what I found is that in politics, even in our own party, people will use the exact same tactics that the socialist Democrats use and be proud of it. But then when you use those same tactics on them, just like the socialist Democrats, they get pissed off. And it's because they're the uniparty. They're all this. I mean, what is the difference between someone like Joe Biden, Mike DeWine, and Rob Portman? There is no difference. They're all the same. And so they use these same tactics and techniques. And when you either call them out on them or you use those same techniques against them, kind of like what I'd call political jujitsu, they get their panties in a wad, so to speak.
Well, and Josh Mandel, I think that those kind of people that are the core establishment, the Bidens, the Portmans, the DeWines, they tolerate some people like Josh Mandel around the periphery, like the barking dogs.
Right.
But listen to Josh Mandel when he talks about how he fought John Kasich. I fought John Kasich. Well, first off, if you watch another Truth Bomb, we put out video of him praising John Kasich when John Kasich was governor.
Yeah, that was a slobber.
Everything that Josh Mandel says he fought Kasich on, he apparently lost. Common Core, Medicaid expansion are two of the most important, but it's kind of this like you and I saw at the Ohio Republican Party meeting, whenever the going got tough, when Josh was there in September,
he was out of the room.
In December, he walked out of the room and to be away from any conflict that might actually for real affect him with the cool kids. Here's another clip that I captured. A gentleman named Rich Ward. It says, Mark Pukita for U.S. Senate is not anti-Semitic. Josh Mandel is and has been losing serious ground with the people of Ohio on a daily basis. Is that the low-life tactic the Mandel game is going to play? When you're losing and all else fails, accuse your opponent. Yeah, we the people see right through that crap. Mark Pukita is a fighter with a solid plan to fix Ohio. No other candidates talk specifics on how they will accomplish anything. No other candidate will call out Republican corruption or speak out against DeWine. If they can't even do that, then they will do. What will they do once elected? Never more truer words were said. Right. We already know the answer to that. They won't do a damn thing. No more do nothing rhinos. Mandel needs to go. So I thought that was a very that's indicative of a lot of the comments that were left on her post.
Well, it's interesting, Chris, because Josh will talk about how he's a fighter, but he's literally got Jenna Ellis fighting for him. Think about that. Right. Is he going to be able to bring her into the Senate chamber and put her up there to fight for him?
Well, why don't I? I never thought about this till right now. Jenna Ellis did not respond. You got your buddy Mandel. Why doesn't Jenna Ellis have you and Josh Mandel on whatever show she's doing now? I know she's moved on at the same time.
I'm in.
Okay? Why doesn't she have you both on at the same time? If she did such a great job picking Josh Mandel in her vetting process for who should be the next senator from Ohio, then she should welcome the opportunity to have you and Josh Mandel on her show together.
I'm in.
At the same time, to just let her buddy Josh Mandel show everybody that he is the real deal and he doesn't need to stoop to dumb tactics like accusing you of being anti-Semitic or dumb tactics like playing on people and using them in this kind of P.T. Barnum act that Josh Mandel does.
Yeah, I call him the televangelist as a lampoon kind of thing. It's bizarre.
Here's the last one I'll put up, Mark, and it's somebody I won't try to repeat this name because I don't know if it's a real person, but it says, I'm unfollowing you on this one. This is the second time you've posted pure garbage, disinformation, and slander. You and I have actually talked about this before. We as conservatives got to make sure we don't fall into the same traps as liberals and start using the same corrupt tactics that they use of smear, when we can't, if Jenna S is so confident in Josh Mandel, have you and him on at the same time so that he can just blow you away with his unbelievable policy knowledge. What she could do is pick a couple policy areas to quiz you guys on to move the debate forward.
Yeah, she can put them in the can. She can just, take 21. She can take mine, 21.
We're not doing it tonight.
She can put them in the can and we can pick them out and talk about them. I'd be happy to do that at any point in time. At any point in time. And here's what you'll hear. Here's what you'll hear. Well, we can't do that because if I, Josh Mandel, if I do that, that'll be giving Mark Pukita name recognition. I got another answer for that, but I can't do it here on the Truth Bomb.
Well, if your opposition wants to put you away, then they should be glad to appear with you side by side.
Right.
So that they can just show how awesome they are compared to. It should be an 8-count first round, right? 8-count first round. But by the way, I will say this before we move on to the last segment is that doesn't mean, and you are. This is the first time you've ever done this, and you're against these people that had a career of doing this kind of stuff. And one of the things is I'll be honest with you, you don't always say things perfect. You don't always do things perfect. But what comes through if these people get up against you one-on-one is that you are an authentic guy. You're an approachable guy. You're a guy that really cares. And that's not that you care about Mark Pukita. You care about our country and our state. A lot of these people care about themselves and they will do anything, say anything. Hell, look at all the ones that transformed into pro-Trump guys just to be able to run for Senate.
That was something I was thinking about today, Chris, that look at Jenna Ellis. She was actually a never Trumper. And then all of a sudden in 2016, she saw the light. There are a lot of people like that. Like Bernie Moreno, for example, was a never Trumper in 2016. Supposedly he saw the light in
2017, 18, and 19.
Yeah, but then in 2019, we saw that he was still dissing on Trump. So I think it comes down to, it sounds terrible, but there are so few people in politics that have any integrity. And when I got in, I was a nobody. I was expecting it to be bad. It's 10 times as bad as I thought it would be. And the most surprising thing to me, and I'm repeating myself, I know, is how thin-skinned these people are when you call them out. They're not used to having people within their own party criticize their policy stances. And it's like almost like when you do it, they have no response because they're shocked. Right. that you would even call them on it.
Do you remember, again, I don't want to waste our time here, but do you remember Sam Donaldson back in the Reagan administration?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, so Sam Donaldson, one of the things we lack too is in Ohio, there's not a press that calls these people out. There's not a press that holds them accountable. And say what you will for Sam Donaldson. I think he was a liberal, but he and Reagan actually had a unique, good relationship. Right. Think about how different Sam Donaldson was to the hack type of Jim Acosta people you have nowadays in the press corps.
Yeah, the question,
and in Ohio, it's just as bad.
Sam Donaldson took the toughest questions, I believe, Chris, that Ronald Reagan's people probably didn't want Ronald Reagan to get. They were probably like, oh, God, he asked that question. but there was a lot of witty repartee between the two of them and respect. And I think that those are the kind of things we need rather than, the planted questions and the, keeping people out of the press room who ask I mean, Mike DeWine's done it with Jack Windsor here in our state. I mean, there's nobody in that press corps that asks him any kind of tough questions.
Right. And what's funny is tough questions make for better leaders. And,
absolutely.
And tough, just like I know when you're in school, when there's going to be tough questions on this test, you become a better student. So tough questions. You ready to move on to segment 3?
Let's do it. So, Chris, segment 3 is about our effort to fix the state central committee. And I know you've got a slide or two on this, but essentially what we're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, is take back a corrupt Ohio Republican Party from kind of the ground up at the state level. And that is to get elected state central committee members that really represent the people and aren't tools of the insider DeWine kind of cabal. So, Chris, do you want to talk about kind of a new twist we've put on this? Yeah. It's a second twist. It's not a replacement. It's not a change. It's kind of a new offering.
Phase 1 twist.
So, yeah, we've got a new offering, as they would say.
So let me see. So what we've done, Mark, and is. What's funny is it's not that we need to getting the Ohio Republican Party back in alignment with the people is a character issue more than anything else. Absolutely. I think even there's a lot of people on the state central committee now. We know some of them, some of them are probably quiet. They're waiting for an opportunity to let their good character show through, and they can't let that show through when it's a rigged, corrupt all around you, like you're
and they've got rotten leadership. If you got that rotten leadership out of the way, I think this would be somewhat of a self-righting mechanism, not completely, but partially.
So here's what we did, and we sent out a note already to the existing state central committee members, and I'm going to flip forward here. We have a very simple deal. I know the type is small here, and I'm going to read the type. I'm going to blow this up to full screen, and then I'll read the what's on here. But what we've added is that if you are going to run, if you let Mark know at info@markforohio.com, Mark the number 4ohio.com, that you want to run for state central committee, and then you get a petition done, which I'll talk about in a second here. And you agree to these 5 points, then Mark is going to give you $250 towards your campaign, which, by the way, for state central committee, these are unpaid jobs. That's not an inconsequential amount. And then, so that's the first people in each district that come to Mark wanting this, to agree to these things and wanting the 250, they get the 250. Okay. First come, first serve. Okay. Then Mark is going to look at the map of everybody running and pick, I would say, 5 to 10 races. And we already advertised out where he will invest at least $50,000 in trying to make sure that people are successful within those districts. And if we can just make a headway, we don't even have, it's not like we don't have to get, everybody, take over, I get 34. We just got to get if we get a little bit more people, we got the malcontents there now. I think there's people in hiding that want to come forward and be part of a clean system. And I think we're not far away. And if we can just change the balance, let's say 6 to 10 seats, I think, and we get rid of specifically, I don't know what you would say, Mark, like, I don't know, half a dozen people that are clearly corrupted and members of the State Central Committee. We can change this. We can take this back and we can make a real difference.
Yeah, we need, I would say 6 to 12 people. We all know who they are if we've been there. And as you said, we don't need the majority. We just need to get rid of the bad apples and let the good nature and the good character and the good ethics of others shine through.
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of like with kids. I have one kid. I know you have more than that, Mark, but it's kind of like kids. A lot of times they take on the behavior of the kids they're around. If they're around kids that are respectful and honest, then they're going to be respectful and honest. If they're around kids that are vandalizing things, they might start vandalizing things. And we got to change the mix. So what
I see, Chris, in the State Central Committee are they're hanging around with kids who are bullies, but treat them nice. So they see the bully behavior and they're like, well, they like me, so I'm just going to continue to kowtow to them. We've got to get rid of the bullies.
By the way, it's amazing how many more people know about the State Central Committee, know about kind of how it works or how it doesn't work than have ever known before. And that's a great thing. So the awareness of this and that it's a big issue and that their primary function they do is to be honest, rig primaries and pay off insiders with
right. That's
money.
Exactly it. And that's not hyperbole, right? And I got to be honest.
Go ahead.
I think our campaign should take credit for that. We have had a lot of volunteers and a lot of supporters show up for these meetings. We've done the organization, but they've done their part. They've done the work. They've showed up. We thank them. I thank them from the bottom of my heart because this is truly a mission we have to take back our state and take back our country. It's bigger than me going to the U.S. Senate by far. This is something that will have lasting impact for a century if we do it right.
So let me throw up here, and I'm going to blast up the full screen, the things that you need to agree to if you're running to run. So one is it's a 5-point pledge, okay, to be in the initial group to get the $250 for your campaign. One is audited financials. I support and will fight for there being a proper annual audit of the ORP by an independent CPA firm, and that such audits take place retroactively for the years 2017 to 2020. Okay, that's point number one. By the way, that's a big point of contention, and it tells you a lot about Bob Paduchek when he's fighting this. Like they're fighting against the idea of having audited financials in a crooked political operation. And if any place you need to have audited financials, it would be casinos, liquor operations, and political operations.
Yeah, right? For sure.
So the second one is no primary endorsements. I support and will fight for the complete and total elimination of ORP State Central Committee primary election endorsements. I support and will fight that party services and resources only be made available to Senate, House, statewide, and Supreme Court candidates after they win in the primary, and only through the conclusion of the general election. I don't know if people all listen know that the party made absolutely corrupt money transfers to DeWine and Yost of what was a mark like 1.3 million.
Yeah.
And that were never approved by the State Central Committee. And it was just in the summer. And the claim was, well, that they were endorsed because they were endorsed, like 4 years ago, like in another election.
Last race.
So that since you were endorsed then, well, we'll just give you $1 million. But right now, coming into a new election, because you count as endorsed since you were endorsed 3 years ago by, I think, a whole different State Central Committee.
Right.
And so the notion that the endorsement goes through the general election and multiple years later, that's how crooked these people are, that they defend this. Third thing is on the record voting. I support and will fight for transparent roll call voting at the request of any State Central Committee member on any vote. And they already have that right, by the way. I have studied, I have them up here. I don't want to grab the wrong document, the bylaws. And, they make reference to, I bet you this is it. Here's the bylaws. And Paduchek acts like they don't. There's something in the bylaws that makes it against their rules to have on the record voting. And I can tell you that is bullshit. There is nothing in the bylaws that, and in fact, the bylaws would support that Robert's Rules of Order determine when roll call votes can happen. And Robert's Rules of Order are very similar to what's here. When any member wants there to be an on the record roll call vote, there can be an on the record roll call vote. The fourth thing is live stream meetings. I support and will fight for all State Central Committee meetings to be open to the public, live streamed and kept available online. They were briefly. That's why we have such great video of Jane Timken loving on Mike DeWine, because during COVID, they did the meetings over Zoom and they live streamed them and it created a permanent record of those meetings. And people like me captured them so that we would have this. And we want to know right now how much Jane Timken loved on Mike DeWine and Rob Portman. If it weren't for the fact that those meetings were live streamed, they all should be live streamed. And then the last point, it says integrity and commitments. I further pledge to not agree to any pledges or make any commitments that would subvert any of the aforementioned points. There's some stuff flowing around here where it's like a primary endorsements. Here's the deal: just quit doing them. We just got to quit doing ORP primary endorsements. There's other people out there. It's like you get a little bit pregnant. We're going to come out. We're going to only do them in certain cases. If this makes 4 criteria met, then we can do them. Then we can do them. No, it's just another path to corruption. And we need to be strong enough to realize these ORP primary endorsements are what keeps us from getting citizen candidates like Mike DeWine and gets us only these retreads that just do musical chairs between offices again and again and again. Because the primary endorsement is used to basically prop these people up, and in many cases do so illegally prop them up using money that's never disclosed on people's campaign finance reports. So those are the 5 points. And people that are interested in this or want to be part of it, remember, or just want more information, email info@mark4ohio.com, info@mark4ohio.com. And I can send you the email that got sent to the State Central Committee members so you can see the whole program. It's all outlined in there. It also has information in there on how to file to run. And just so everybody knows, the current deadline for filing a petition is February 2nd for filing a petition to run for State Central Committee. You only need to have 5 valid signatures. You can get up to 15, and you want to get 15 in case you have problems with signatures. And that's all spelled out in the note that lays out what the kind of rules and guidelines are around this program. But I think we want to make sure people are running, and we want to have as few criteria as possible to make sure we get good people really thinking about this and getting their petitions filed. Then Mark will decide which races he wants to take to
the next level. We've and I will say, Chris, that we've put together pretty much a recipe for people to understand how to run. It's very simple, as you said, the 5 or 15 signatures. And the other thing is, this is not a lot of work, and you don't need any kind of special education or experience to do this. Your experience as being a human being, a citizen of the United States, a citizen of Ohio, and being interested in politics and watching the corruption that we've got out there. And so anybody can do it. If you've been to any of these meetings, you realize anybody can do it, because there's some really interesting characters on State Central Committee.
I'm gonna at risk of this being the night I get fired, I'm gonna disagree a little bit with the boss. I'm gonna add, also I'm adding texture. We need people that are just good people, okay? And you teach being honest. Like after a certain point, maybe when you're little you can, but when you get to be an adult, you're either honest and have character. And so that goes with what you said, Mark, is absolutely. We need people that are honest, have character, and that's more important than anything else.
Right.
We can teach you Robert's Rules of Order. We can teach you this. But I tell you what, coming out of the gate, these are some crafty, evil political people that we're up against. And we need some people that bring some serious jack to that. So if you're somebody out there that has had experience in watchdog type things and fighting the man and successful, professional, one of the things is, what would it be like if Mark Bainbridge was not on that committee? So Mark Bainbridge on the committee is the only CPA on the Ohio State Central Committee, Republican Party, and they treat him like dirt. And he is a retired CPA from a major firm.
Right.
And so it is important that he was there because he, adds a lot of gravitas to, it's hard to ignore the guy that is the state central, that is a retired CPA. So we need honest people, but we also need people that can bring it to the table.
Yeah, that is true. And I do bow to you, Chris, on that one.
We need both. We need both, but we need, so if you don't, the beauty is that it wouldn't take that much to really upend this and change it. You can be part. I heard a speech. I don't want to go on and on here, Mark, but I heard a speech that was
what you will.
About what did our founding fathers have to do to change our country, and what did the regular people need to do? And one of the lines in it was, we're not being asked to fight a revolution in the winter with no shoes. That's
right.
what people did to earn us our freedoms. And it is not that hard to do this. If this is all you're called to do is run for state central committee and go to 4 meetings a year and basically be honest, and if you have some skills, bring them, then you owe it. You owe it to not just our founding fathers, but when people talk about owing a debt to the people that have fought and died to give us our freedoms, this is where you owe it. This is where you owe it.
Right. And this is, I think about how kind of cowardly we've become or soft we've become, that you would get all butt chapped over having someone question your decision making on something at a state central committee meeting. I mean, this is not stage 4 pancreatic cancer like my father had. This is not, this is serious stuff about the future of the country, but it's not like you're risking your life as a member of the armed forces, as you said. It's
right.
And they intimidate people to keep them off state central committee. And we need some strong fighters to get on and turn this thing around.
And competent people aren't afraid of honest discussions. Competent people aren't afraid of critique. Competent people aren't afraid of somebody questioning their decision. Competent people actually like that. Competent people actually have no problem with that. So,
and the people that do have problems are either incompetent or criminals.
So, Mark, we got to wrap up here.
Yeah.
We said we weren't going to do it before we started. We weren't going to really do a campaign update, but maybe you have some closing thoughts on the holidays and so forth.
Well, I would just say that we've got a light schedule between now and the day after New Year's because it's the holiday, and we're not going to be trying to have our volunteers and our staff dragged away from their families during this amazing time of the year, especially now that we're kind of coming out of this COVID nonsense. So what I would say to everybody is have a great Christmas, a great New Year, be safe, spend it with your family. Thank God for the time you get with them. Thank God we're living in a country where as free as we are, and pray fervently that God is not finished with us, like I believe, that I think our best years are yet to come, that this is a sharpening, strengthening exercise we're going through. Tough times make strong men. We're strong humans. We're going through some tough times, but I think we're going to come out of them. And here's what I would pray for. I would pray that we never have to go through what we've gone through the past few years again. That once we get out of it, we realize and we learn from history and we get back to some of the basics that we've lost. They work so well, we stop doing them. And that is not good. So anyway, Merry Christmas to all of you. Have a happy New Year. As I said, be safe and all the rest. God bless all of you. God bless the United States of America.